You are listening to Here Before, Here Now, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hey guys, Colton here with another episode of Here Before, Here Now. And today my guest is someone who I am really excited to talk to. I've known her for several years, so let's just put that out there. I think I've known her for more than 20 years now. She was actually one of a coach of mine when I was in high school while I was doing speech and debates. And Julia Kolsrud, she is an attorney who specializes in Indian law. So it's kind of amazing to go back and see where we are right now. We both did speech and debates in high school, and we were both competitive. And now we both use our words for a living.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. You do it on camera, I do it in the courtroom, but I think we're both using our oratory skills very well.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm actually speaking, sometimes not very well, but yet I still get to do it for a living, which is pretty incredible.
I think that our standards for public speaking are a little bit high on ourselves.
Yeah.
So like we don't think we're doing well for 2 or 3 seconds and it feels like 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And no one else sees it.
I know sometimes I'll have like a live shot where we go out live and that's completely unscripted. And I'll think to myself, oh my gosh, I totally flubbed that. And then I'll look at the air check of it and it was like 2 seconds and it was completely nothing. But we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can thank Mrs. Krause for that.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Diana.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to call her that. Like ever since we had kids, she's kept in contact, and I'll also call her Mrs. Krause. And you know, we've had lunch not too long ago, so it's good to see that she has such an impact on all of her students.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Did you do mock trial too?
I did do mock trial.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I did mock trial. I think we went to the state champions when we were competing. Do you remember how far you guys had gone?
I don't remember at all.
I know. It's a blur, right? It's a blur. I do remember that morning, though, we were going to the tournament, and I didn't bring a suit jacket. And Mrs. Krause told me to go home and get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and I appreciate that because, I don't know, nowadays it'd probably be like, you're fine, go ahead and go and do it. So, you know, that's a work ethic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a different time.
Yeah.
A different time. It
really is.
And we can say that now.
I know, right? I mean, she'll probably never hear this, but shout out Diana Krause.
Absolutely.
Send her the link to this. All right, let's get to you. So you became a lawyer.
I did.
Okay, so now you are a federal Indian lawyer.
Yep, I'm a federal Indian law attorney.
So tell me about that journey. I mean, I'm not want to assume anything. Are you native?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, so what made you decide to go into this field?
So when I was living in Los Angeles, I saw a lot of hate and persecution against a lot of immigrants who were in Los Angeles. And at one point in time, I came home and my neighbors were sitting on the stoop outside of our apartment, very, very upset. And it turned out that her husband, the father of her 4 kids, had been picked up and was in an ICE facility. And they were just distraught. They just had no way of making a living. He was the sole breadwinner. Anyway, I decided then that I wanted to do immigration law.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came back, I went to law school. I started, applying to different law firms for it. And I applied at a law firm called Sparks Law Firm. And I called Joe Sparks and I said, do you do immigration law? I really want to help people. And he said, I don't do immigration law. And he basically hung up on me.
Oh, wow.
About 4 months after that, he called me back and he said, do you still want to help people? And I said, yes. Mm. And he said, because I have some people that really need some help. And my first job out of law school was at his firm. It's a very small firm in Scottsdale, Arizona, representing several different tribes in Arizona. And it was exactly that fix that I needed because I did become a lawyer because I wanted to help people. And you get to wear the white hat, you really do, when you're representing Indian tribes.
Yeah. I mean, it's so complex when it comes to federal Indian law. My sister is a federal Indian legal attorney also. And, I can't even talk to her because it's so complex and, tribal sovereignty and protected political status and all this stuff. How do you make sense of all these complex issues?
The federal Indian part, it just takes a lot of time, especially water law. That takes a lot of time to get used to the lingo, the vocabulary, and really understand it. For me, the biggest hurdle has always been and probably always will be the politics and the culture of the tribal council and the tribal members. Mm-hmm. I'm general counsel for a tribe, And so I deal with the politics a lot more than I did before when I was just special counsel on gaming or just special counsel on water rights or land. Now I'm dealing with all of the different issues that a tribal council has to deal with. And so for me, it was actually the cultural and political hurdle that I'm still struggling to sort of keep up with.
Yeah. I mean, when you go into a courtroom and you're representing these cases or talking to these tribal members and tribal councils, what's the reception like?
In the courtroom, the reception is, I think that generally a lot of courtrooms find Native plaintiffs, defendants, claimants to be sort of a thorn in their side. Because they come in, the Native American tribes come in with treaties and documents and promises from the federal and state governments, black and white, this is what our right is, this is what we're supposed to have. And every other actor in the room, the people that represent the water districts and the farmers, they sort of, I don't want to say roll their eyes, but figuratively they do when a tribe walks in because the tribe has the upper hand legally, but politically they don't. When it comes to addressing tribal councils and tribal members, most of the time, those individuals just need to be heard. A lot of them have never had an audience with somebody who's like powerful enough to do something about it or to fight for them.
Right.
And so usually those conversations are very well received.
Did you ever think you'd be in this position, going on behalf of tribes to help them get what they deserve, including water settlements, which we'll talk about in just a moment?
I knew once I started practicing in the field that I would spend the rest of my career doing it. So I didn't see myself necessarily working on the largest water settlement in Arizona history, but I have worked before in water litigation and water settlements. And so, yeah, I could see myself doing it. Not necessarily this specific project, but yeah.
Yeah. So last year, a few months ago, I was out on a live report with several tribal officials and lawyers talking about this largest water rights settlement. And you represent one of the tribes that will benefit directly. Tell me about what this case is and what this tribe is asking for and what could potentially happen and what might not happen still.
Absolutely. So the Northeastern Arizona Indian Water Rights Settlement Act is an act or settlement that was signed by the bunch of state parties as well as the Navajo Nation, the Hopi Tribe, and the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe. I represent the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe. The San Juan Southern Paiute have been trying to get a treaty. Let me back up. So I was about to say in 1934.
I was going to say it's always rooted in treaties and things that happened several hundreds of years ago even.
Yeah. So just real quick, in 1934, the federal government set aside about 8 million acres of land up in northeastern Arizona, and they call it the Navajo reservation. And I'm using air quotes when I say that because the language of the act specifically says that it's for the Navajo tribal members, the Navajo Nation, and any other such Indians that live there. So the Hopis raised their hand and said, we're here. We need to be part of this. Some of this 8 million is ours. And the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe, which wasn't federally recognized, also stood up and said, hold on, we are here too. So the San Juan were sort of pushed aside because they weren't federally recognized yet. But the Hopi and the Navajo just started battling over it. Just years and years and years of litigation. So finally, in 1974, Congress was like, look, if you guys can't make this decision, then fine. Take one more chance to settle it. And if you can't, go to court. And we will give the court permission to make the decision over who gets what portions of land. And so they started in 1974 this legal battle over the 1934 Act lands. And that went on for decades and decades. And then in the 1990s, the San Juan Southern Paiute popped its head up again, or the late 1980s, and said, hey, we've been federally recognized now. We are here. We're the other such Indians. We also get to go to court and fight for this land. So they go to court. The Hopi and the Navajo, they figure things out. They're allowed to partition the land. The Paiutes figure it out with the Navajo Nation. But the language in 1974 didn't say they could partition it. They just said that they could determine which pieces of land they had an interest in. So like I said, Hopi and Navajo have their distinct reservations. And the San Juan Southern Paiute were sort of left in limbo, where they have these areas on the Navajo reservation that they've been told they have a right to, but it was never partitioned because the court didn't have the power to do that. So basically what happened was the San Juan Southern Paiute went to the Court of Appeals and said they should be able to partition and we want more land. And the Navajo Nation said, you know what, let's try to settle. So the Navajo and the Paiutes came up with a treaty wherein the San Juan Southern Paiute would get 5,400 acres of land within the boundaries of the Navajo reservation. And that would be the end of it. 300 up near Navajo Mountain and then 5,100 down by Hidden Springs, which is near Tuba City. So at that point, they needed to get the treaty ratified. They couldn't get the treaty ratified for many, many reasons, much of them political. They could not come to an agreement on how to introduce the legislation, who to have introduced the legislation, things like that. So for 25 years, the San Juan Southern Paiute have just been trying to push this treaty through. So circle back to today. The San Juan Southern Paiute found out that the Hopi and Navajo were going to settle the water rights on the Little Colorado River. The Little Colorado River also feeds water to the San Juan Southern Paiutes. So they went to the United States. They said, you're our trustee. We should be part of these negotiations. Like, we need to be brought into the fold. And all the parties agreed. So San Juan gets brought into the fold. And what's in the Northeastern Arizona Water Rights Settlement Act for the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe is going to be ratification of that 2000 treaty. So they're finally going to get their own exclusive reservation, which without it, they have been denied so many funds, so many grants, so much help that other tribes are able to receive. The Paiutes haven't been able to do that. So hopefully when this legislation passes, they will get ratification of their treaty. They're also going to get 350 acre feet a year from the Navajo Nation, or straight from the Inabapa to Akatsi pipeline, which is part of the Settlement Act. Part of that act is going to be a pipeline that goes from Lake Powell up to the Navajo Nation. There's going to be a turnout for the Navajo Nation, a turnout for the San Juan Southern Paiute, and a turnout for the Hopi. And that's going to be how that water is going to be delivered.
Wow. And all these tribes saying that this is a long time coming, that this is water that's part of our ancestral lands, and we don't have access to it.
Yeah. It's the number of people that don't have water in their homes, that have to haul water, that don't have electricity in their homes. I mean, people are very concerned about third world countries outside of the United States, and I don't believe that they realize that we have people living like that here right now who need help.
Yeah, I know. I remember when I was doing some reporting for COVID on the Navajo Nation, and people were just shocked that number of homes don't have electricity or water. But this is part of the goal to change that, right? What do we see in terms of a timeline when homes will be connected to a water source in their own homes? Or I know the electricity aspect is different, but we're seeing pushes made in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. So at least in terms of the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe, they can't build any homes until they have their exclusive reservation. So hooking up the mobile homes that they have now, especially if they plan to move to the reservation lands, isn't really. I mean, it is possible, but it's not really practicable. So I would say that once the treaty lands are actually ratified and they have this exclusive reservation, there's going to be a lot more movement toward getting them water and electricity. But until they have access to it, there's not much that they can do.
Right.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I know that this is been pushed forward to get signed into law. Is that a possibility going forward with the way the political realm and environment is right now?
So I think that the current administration would be more than happy to take credit for this settlement act. I do. I think that what will happen is the legislation we plan to introduce in the next couple of weeks, it had been introduced last year, but it was just too late in the year, I think, for it to get pushed all the way forward.
Yeah.
We're going to, I believe that it's going to be introduced hopefully by Juan Ciscomani again, and Mark Kelly in the House. And we hope that happens in the next 2 or 3 weeks. From there will likely be hearings at which the Hopi, the San Juan Southern Paiute Tribe, and the Navajo Nation will all give their testimony. And then after that, it'll get toggled around from different committees and then hopefully make it to the president's desk. And like I said, I don't think that they'll have a problem with it. They may have a problem with the price tag because it is the most expensive settlement in the U.S. history at $5 billion. And that may go up depending upon some of the negotiations we're having with the upper basin states who also use Colorado River water. But I really would put money on it being passed this year. And I have hope that it will be passed during the first half of the year.
Yeah. For the people you represent and finally having a stake in their homeland of having a reservation, what's that like? What's been the conversations been like for those who have wanted this, who've pushed for this for decades, and finally it's within sight, within reach?
I've represented a number of different tribes. There is a cloud, I think, that hangs over a group of people who have no homeland, who have no place to call their own, and have been told by their sister tribes, the state, and the feds that they don't deserve to have their own homeland, that they're not a legitimate tribe, that they're not legitimate people, that their culture and their language isn't legitimate. There's already a heaviness a lot when it comes to dealing with tribal members of other tribes, but there's something about the desperation of a people who have never had a place to call home that I think that this is going to impact them in a way that a water settlement alone wouldn't. I think it's going to be incredibly life-changing. And there are a number of elders who are no longer here with us that did negotiate this and were part of the federal recognition and put in all the groundwork to make this happen. But there are still some that are here and they want to see it go through, and they come to every tribal council meeting and they ask me questions. They pull me aside. They want this to happen before they're gone. And hopefully that means it'll happen, like I said, in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. Wow. So when you work on this yourself and you have this impact, is this what you were searching for when you started to call Sparks Law Firm and say, I want to help someone?
Absolutely. I keep joking that once this reservation is established, I'm going to retire.
Sure.
I think that it will, I can't imagine something beating it. I just think it's going to be life-changing for so many people. Yeah. And I'm very proud to be a part of it.
It sounds like the makings of a movie, right?
I hope so. Yeah. I like that people deserve to know the story.
Yeah.
They really do.
Instead of Aaron Brockovich, it'll be Julia Kolsrud.
There it is.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, anything else in the pipeline that you're working on, or at least that people should be, kind of aware of what's happening in Indian country?
Well, I mean, there's all sorts of issues with some of the executive orders that have been handed down in terms of funding and grants and stuff that's sort of been put on hold and frozen. People don't realize that impacts IHS. It impacts, the health, safety, homes, medicine, all sorts of stuff that happens on reservations that is supported by federal funding. So there's a lot of that going on. There are a lot of states who are changing ICWA laws, like what your sister does. And that's going to be that's concerning because we want people to adhere to the purpose of ICWA. So those are two big things. And then the other is just to keep an eye on Indian gaming. It's always really exciting to see what's happening. They're at the forefront of all the technology. And they're really starting to make an imprint in the United States in terms of being the brand that you turn to more often than not is a tribal brand. Even if you're working with hard rock, you're working with the Seminole tribe.
Right.
I mean, there's usually a tribal component to all of that, and I encourage people to look into it.
Yeah, so interesting, so fascinating. All the issues and things coming out of Indian country.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I was able to bring you on the show and talk to you because it was cool seeing you last year when we were at that settlement announcement. It's cool to see us, I don't know, being adults.
Right? It's weird.
Yeah, it totally is. We both got kids now, and man, I just remember having my swooped hair and my acne, and it's just I still have the acne anyway.
Oh, no, it's great. It's just great to see you.
Awesome. Well, Julia, thank you so much for being here. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Here Before, Here Now. If you have any ideas, want to drop me a line, you can reach me at colton.schoen@azfamily.com. Till next time.
You are listening to Here Before, Here Now, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.